Hello.
Welcome.
Excellent.
Morning.
The floor is yours.
So, hi everyone. I'm Anvi. I'm a developer relations engineer at Descope, and let's just get started. We don't have a ton of time. Go ahead, share my screen. So, a little bit of background about Descope. We started off as a full customer identity and access management platform, uh, making it super seamless to secure your customer identities. And earlier this year, we launched the Descope Agentic Identity Hub to take that same mentality of just making it super easy to protect your customer identities, to also protect your agent identities. So, a quick overview of our platform. So, as part of this, what we aim to make it super simple to do, it's really secure that entire agent lifecycle, starting with your consent screen. So, defining your scopes, um, without having to, touch any code, build any custom UI, being able to, have your users delegate access to agents and other third-party applications and really know what they're getting into as they're doing that. Another big part of that is that entire consent flow. How are you making sure the user is authenticated before they're delegating consent? Doing that without having to, rewrite your entire auth stack to support this. We also have things like dynamic client registration verification. So when you have an agent coming from any kind of client, you can set certain restrictions on who you actually want to be able to register yourself. So if they're coming from certain IPs, certain kinds of clients, you can either block or deny based on that through our management flows. We also have scope-based AI access, so just super simple, easy ways to define scopes and correlate them with your tools so that you can enforce on a tool level, on like an action level, to make sure that the user has delegated the correct scope in order to even allow the agent to act on their behalf. We also have things like policy controls and lifecycle management. So if you have a tool in your MCP server, you want to connect to any kind of external resource, then you want to make sure you have a easy way of having that user connect to that third-party app. You don't want to have to control the token management, do any of that yourself. So you can do all of that within Descope as well, and even define access control rules to determine policies on who can actually use those third-party application tokens and under what conditions, and set security policies and such to block that access. And then finally, throughout this entire life cycle, from registration to actual like tool call and usage and that policy, like when it blocks it, you need to be able to audit and troubleshoot and have a unified control plane to validate that. So that was just the very super quick overview of the Agentic Identity Hub, but I'm going to actually just move into the demo so we can show you what it's all about. So over here, I built a very simple MCP server. The trend today, I guess, is age verification and IDs and things like that. So in today's demo, we're going to go over three main things. So we have that scope-based AI agent access that we were talking about. So how can you display, grant, and manage granular scopes for your AI agents? And then also enforce that at the tool level. Then we also have DCR agent verification. How can you validate the legitimacy of AI agents created using dynamic client registration? And then third, we have user identity verification. So let's say you have, in my example, I've built a beverage company. I don't want to have all users necessarily verify their age, only when they want to delegate access for purchasing an alcoholic beverage. So how can you do that dynamically? How can you have that logic without touching any code? So let's dive into the Descope console and show you how to set that all up. So Descope has inbound apps, which basically enable you to become your own OAuth provider without having to mess with any of that metadata or um, any of these other things that come into becoming an OAuth provider. You don't have to, you can drop in a couple lines of code with in your preferred framework and have that all automatically set up. And so to enable the dynamic client registration, if you have, you don't necessarily know what agent is going to be connecting in advance when you have something like a public MCP server. So you can just toggle enable dynamic client registration on, and then you can define the scopes that will be available to be approved for granting. So the client will be able to request these scopes and the user will be able to go through these are marked mandatory or optional, so they'll be able to click through and choose which scopes that they actually want to be able to consent to. We also can enable empty scope handling because sometimes the client doesn't know which scopes to request or they're unable to find it from the metadata. You can set an audience whitelist, and you can also set an assessment flow. So that was what we were talking about earlier. At the time of client registration, you may want to set certain rules in place for using the client's information and either block or allow that registration. So before you even get to the user being able to consent, there are cases where you might just want to immediately block it. You only want trusted clients to be able to access your server. So I just set up a really quick agent review flow so that only agents from Claude and Cloudflare will be able to actually register to my application. And then we also have your consent flow, which I'll go into the flow builder and show you how that all works. But you can just drop that in here. And then you can set up custom session management, but I'm going to inherit that from my Descope project for now. So going into the consent flow, it's very simple. You have a check over here to check if the user is logged in. And then from there, we have a subflow to sign up or in if the user is not logged in. Then we have a check to make sure if the user has already granted consent, we're not going to make them go through that again and again. So simple check. We can show the consent screen. These scopes get automatically populated based on either what's defined in dynamic client registration, the scopes there, or if the client is requesting certain scopes and they're available, they'll show up over here. And then we just have simple action to update the user consent. So what I'm actually going to do over here is, so I had those 3 scopes defined in my dynamic client registration settings. So to be able to, for alcoholic beverages, non-alcoholic beverages, and then being able to order. So actually for the agent to actually check out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drop in a condition because I want to check that if the user is granting access for the agent to purchase alcohol on their behalf. So if alcohol scope granted, and what I'm going to do is over here, I can grab I'll just check whether the approved scopes key, whether it contains alcohol. And if the alcohol scope is granted, I'm actually gonna, and this is also the fun of Descope. You maybe recall encode from earlier today. So you can use our connector ecosystem within your flows to bolster things like that ID verification and have that as a extended capability as well. So over here, if the alcohol scope is granted, I will redirect to encode, verify that identity, and I already set up my encode workflow to verify that the user is 21 plus, and only redirect back if they if they are. And then if the user doesn't even try to grant that alcohol scope, they won't see this. They'll just be able to update their consent. They'll be granted a token without that scope, with only the beverages and the order scope. And then that enforcement will be done at the tool level. So I can go over here and show you that, like in my browse alcoholic beverages tool, I have a validate either session function over here. So it basically uses that auth context. That token is then sent in the request to the MCP server. And over here, I can use I'm using the Descope node SDK over here to validate the session. And then I can extract the token scopes from that request. And then I can just check to make sure that the required scopes are included in the scopes, and then just block that tool call if the scope is not present or if the session validation fails. So going back here, I'll be using Claude as my client today. I have my MC4 demo set up over here as a connector. So I can go ahead, click connect. It'll take me to my consent flow. For simplicity's sake, I'll sign in with Google. And so now it's asking me for the scopes that it passed the verification flow. So I can see that I have a new inbound app here. I've requested these scopes over there, and my status is verified. And I can even see that this is created using dynamic client registration. And then it passed that agent review flow, and which is why I then, within the flow, I had marked that status is verified. And now it's asking me for the scopes that I had defined in that DCR config earlier. So I'll go ahead and authorize all three. And now it'll redirect me to encode. So I didn't have the wherewithal actually to bring my own fake ID to the demo. So I'm not going to be sharing my phone screen. Don't want to share my actual ID information. But it'll basically ask me to select what document I want to scan. I'll do my driver's license, give access to my camera, and then I will scan my ID over here, and it's using my front camera for whatever reason. So it's going through inspecting. It was a success on the front. Now I'm going over to the back. Scanning that. I don't know if you guys have tried using your front camera to scan something while not showing it on your laptop camera recently. It's a little bit of a challenge. Okay, but they're validating my documents. And now it's going to ask me to take a selfie to show that I'm actually, I haven't grabbed my mom's ID. It's actually, I am able to to delegate the access to buy my wine. And now scan is completed and verification is complete. So now it'll redirect me back to Claude. That flow has completed. Awesome. And then Claude sometimes takes a second. Okay, perfect. So now I can see the tools that are available in my server. So now I can go and I can say browse alcoholic beverages. I can even just say browse, browse alcoholic beverages for wine. And it should pick up on my now connected MCP server. So it is asking me for consent to use that tool. And now it'll use that token that was returned at the end of that registration. It has the alcohol scope in it. So it allows me to actually browse the selection. And if I had not granted, or if I had not, approved access to that alcohol scope, it would have denied that. So I also have, like, in the adding to cart tool, I have a check to also make sure that the user has granted that scope. So I can say, add the Chardonnay to the cart. And then it'll be able to call that other tool. That same tool level scope validation will happen once more. So at every step, it'll check to make sure that I've actually have access to that. So I will open up the floor to questions now.
Anvi, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that demo. Really, really great to see walk us through. First question we have, do you also handle connections with third-party apps or other MCP servers, like billing, calendars, the Shopify MCP server, for example?
Yeah. So within, so that's a product that we call our outbound apps. You can connect to any kind of third-party tool, either using OAuth or if it's an API key connection, and then we can store and handle that refresh for those connections as well. And you can, within that consent flow, you can have the user, if they want to, connect to other third-party tools. It's as easy as dropping in an extra action in that consent flow.
Quick question for me. I know we're focused on commerce here, but this tool that you have, the agentic actions, the identity, do you support internal kind of like enterprise MCPs, other ways to use identity for access and agents?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's part of the beauty of the flow and the flexibility of the platform as well. So in that authentication flow, I clicked sign in with Google.
Yeah.
You can limit that to be like your own internal enterprise SSO, and you can disable dynamic client registration, only have, or like do an IP check, make sure that only people from your office are registering, and then you can also like even have those outbound connections on a tenant level instead of just a user level. So like for an organization, you can have like the admin connect a configuration for the entire group.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciated Descope being part of this demo day today. And again, awesome demo, and really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.